Recording in progress.
Ready. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Vanderwood. I'm the mayor of West Haven, and I want to call this meeting to order. It's our West Haven City Council meeting. Today is February 1st, 2023, and it's 6:01 p.m. We're glad to have everyone here, and we're glad to have our council and our staff and our representative from Weber County, Lieutenant Jeffries. We're glad to have him here, too. And everyone that's here visiting as well. We're glad to have you visit with us, and we'll get some discussions going today. We'll get started, though, on our opening ceremonies. We'll start our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Dixon and our prayer or moment of silence with Councilmember Call.
Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we bow our heads this evening and are grateful to be gathered together as a community and as elected officials. We're grateful for this opportunity to better our city and to continue to provide opportunities for others here. We pray that we may be aware and attentive to the items on this agenda, that we may be thoughtful and considerate of the needs of our community. We ask for thy blessing upon us this night and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Dixon and Councilmember Call. Appreciate that. We'll move on to item number 3, our public presentation. Residents attending this meeting will have an allotted 2 minutes and to express any concern or ask any question that is not on the agenda. No action can or will be taken on any of the items that are brought forth. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4. Upcoming events. Our upcoming events that we've got listed on here are our senior lunch bunch for February 22nd of this year, of course, and it's at 11:30. It looks like if you decide to come, if anybody would like to come, we're having a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. You can't pass that up. I'm just saying. And it will be really good. We'll have that lined up for our seniors this time. It does. And our next item on here is our Easter egg hunt that'll be on April 8th. We're just broadcasting that early, so we'll have good attendance on that. Any updates on that, Councilmember Dixon?
It's already in the works, and it seems like eggs are like pumpkins now, so it's a good thing we only have plastic eggs.
Well, it's good to know. We can prepare. We'll figure that out. All right. Anything else from the council? Any updates? Okay. Moving forward. That was advance, excuse me. We'll move to item number 5 on council updates. Is there any updates that we need to share with each other or the community?
Just information's sake, city beautification is going to get up and running again in March. I believe the first meeting will be the 13th of March here at 5:30. So we'd encourage any volunteers to come out, and looking forward to a new season. Thanks.
Very nice. Thank you. Anything else? We know legislation session is in full swing, and there's a lot of bills coming out, some that we see that will affect West Haven, and we want to keep a close eye on that, see what things are coming up. So we'll move on to item number 6 on here for our action on consent agenda. Item A is for City Council minutes. The meeting was held on January 4th of 2023. Item B is for our special City Council minutes that was held on January 10th of 2023. Item C was a special City Council work session minutes that was held on January 17th of 2023. And D, a strategic plan City Council minutes that were held on January 19th or 18th, 2023. And then we also have item E on here for Marriott Construction. That was for $393,507.37. And we have the Weber County Sheriff for $426,190 on there. That is our action for consent agenda. Any questions from the council or comments? If not, I'm open for motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda items A through F as stated on the minutes on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call on that. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Call,
Aye.
Councilmember Saunders,
Aye.
Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
and Councilmember Schwab.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved for our consent agenda. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 7. Our presentation is for an audit review with Aldrich and Associates. Looks like we've got you coming up right now, ready to go.
Hello, my name is Heather Christofferson. I am with Ulrich & Associates, and we are your independent auditors for the city. I will be brief on this. We've already met with the audit committee earlier this week and gone over the details. My understanding is Matt is going to drive and show the pages that I'm referring to as I'm going along. Perfect. Wonderful. First of all, I wanted to thank Child Richards Group, the Ryan and Amy, for all their help in putting all this together. It really allows us to have a seamless audit as we go forward. And then, of course, Emily for pulling all the information we need. This is for the June 30, 2022 year end. So it is more than 6 months ago. And then I wanted to also point out there were no state findings and no recommendations that we found that were necessary for this audit year. I am just going to point out a few of the areas that might be of interest. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. If you would turn to page 1, this is the audit report. It's our first letterhead page. This is basically what you're paying for. You're paying for a clean opinion, and that's what this letter states. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. We didn't find any issues. The information from what we can see that you are receiving throughout the year is represented in both this report and what you're looking at from time to time. The next section is called the Management Discussion and Analysis. This is management's interpretation of all the information. So if you are going to read any of this audit report, I would start with this information. It's 5 to 8 pages, and it's going to give you some details comparing to prior year. That's going to be the most useful in looking at the information rather than looking in detail in all the statements. Moving forward to page 8, it's the statement of net position. This is full accrual accounting, basically your balance sheet for the city. This is how a normal business would look at the finances for the city. This is not how you manage. It's a requirement that we report this way, but most people don't find it very interesting or helpful. I'm going to move on to the next page, which is the statement of activities. This is essentially the income statement for the city. This is a little more interesting because it does break down the various functions of the city and then how it's supported. For instance, the general government function there for $1.6 million is the expenses. Then you can see that it's partially funded by charges for services, operating grants, and capital grants. Obviously, you're also funded by sales tax as well, which really fills in the gap. And then the final 2 pages that I wanted to point out are page 10. This is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. So this is going to be your main operating fund, the general fund. This is on a modified accrual accounting basis, so this is likely what is going to be represented in your backup detail quarterly or monthly that you're going to receive from the treasurer. This shows unassigned fund balance, which is important for the general fund. It is $4.2 million. That's 29% of your revenues, which is a major state compliance requirement that you be under 35%. So you are in compliance with that. And then the final statement that I'm going to point out is on page 12. It's a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is essentially the income statement on modified accrual. Again, that's going to be where you're going to be comparing your budget to actual for all of the funds. And you can see down, let's see here, net change in fund balance. You've got essentially a positive overall of about $5 million for the governmental funds only for the 2022 year. That is all I was going to cover, and I'm sure this is not the most exciting stuff for this evening. So, any questions?
We enjoy it. Any comments from the council at all?
No, we appreciate you coming in and helping us at the audit committee, helping us understand what we are looking at. So
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
We appreciate
Thanks.
it. All right, we'll move on to the next item on here. This is item number 8, our presentation on the Louder and Prouder tour for Weber State University. President Brad Mortensen.
Yes,
Man, you've been the president, was it 2019?
2019. Yes, 4 years.
Very nice.
Sometimes it seems like 4 days, and sometimes it seems like 4 decades. But you all can relate to that as well, I'm sure, with your service that you do. But Mr. Mayor, pleasure to be with you. Thank you for allowing us some time to be on your agenda this evening to update you with what's happening at Weber State University. Hopefully, you see us as your university and wanting to be a great partner with you here in West Haven City. A few just things I would call out. That are fun facts to share. We have at the university 29,914 total students enrolled as of last fall. 831 of them are West Haven residents. 476 of those are kind of degree-seeking students enrolled on our campus, and then almost 346 are high school students participating in concurrent enrollment programs or earning college credit at the same time that they're going through high school. I think West Haven may have seen the largest growth in the number of Weber State alumni that live in your community, which growth is something that you are dealing with in all shapes and sizes. But since I was here last time, when I was new as president, it's almost doubled. We went from 2,750 alumni in West Haven in 2019-20 to almost 4,700 who live in your city now. And number of notable alumni amongst us, including Councilmember Dixon, Councilmember Morse, and probably some others in the audience. Any other Weber alumni out there? I am sorry to all of you, but we appreciate you all serving so prominently and representing us and contributing in the ways that you do. Some other alums in your community you might be familiar with. Aloha Flores Reynolds is a program manager for the Air Force, and her husband Nathan, both of them graduated with their bachelor's degrees about a little over 10 years ago, and Nathan's a refurbishment value stream manager for GE Healthcare. And so we have 40 employees who live in West Haven and certainly have a lot of impact and association here. Some of our students do community engaged learning in your community. We have a student who recently was working in West Haven Elementary with the behavior unit and spent her day in a 4th grade classroom with students, helping them who were having a bad day because of circumstances they had. And that's such a valuable experience for our students to get real world interactions beyond what they learn in the classroom. So some other things happening on campus. We always have lots of construction. Right now we're replacing the east side of the football stadium, which is the oldest concrete at the university, about 70 years old. Before we get an earthquake or an exuberant student section bringing it down during a game, we're replacing that in the track and the playing surface, hopefully in time for our first home football game this upcoming fall. We recently opened a brand new engineering building, which is really state of the art, really exciting as we try to support the aerospace and defense industry here in northern Utah. The legislature last year funded a renovation of our education, the McKay Education Building, so that we can modernize that and help prepare the next generation of teachers. And so a lot of great things happening on campus, but truly some of the greatest things are our students. And I'm very pleased to have one of our outstanding students who happens to live in West Haven here with me tonight. Ben Packard is a member of our Student Presidential Leadership Fellows. He is nominated for that because of not only his great academic pursuits, but also the involvement that he has on campus and really being an engaged student in every way. He is a microbiology major and a double minor in chemistry and neuroscience. So he's
the easy stuff.
He's pretty smart. But I'd like to turn a little bit of time over to Ben to allow him to share his story with you all and talk about his Weber State experience.
So Ben, what's the plan after Weber State?
What's the plan from Weber State?
After Weber State.
After
Where
Weber State,
are
I'll
you
share that
headed?
with you tonight. Thank you, President Mortensen. I just want to say it's an honor to be in front of so many amazing people. I see some familiar faces. I grew up in West Haven, and I love everything about West Haven, so it's great to be here tonight. Like President Morton said, I currently am a student at Weber State. I am a senior right now, studying microbiology, neuroscience, and chemistry. My parents, you might know my parents, they're the Packards that we own the dental office just down the road. 6 sons, just kind of rambunctious growing up. Hopefully we never caused any trouble around here. But I just kind of want to share my story of, how I came to Weber State and what Weber State's done for me, and then get to where I hope to go. So in high school, I chose to go to Weber State because it was a financially safe decision, right? I thought maybe I'll go to Weber State for the first 2 years, get my associates, and then maybe I'll go somewhere else. And when I started going to Weber State after my mission, I found out that I loved it. It was just, I fell in love with a lot of people. I fell in love with a lot of the activities that were done, and I fell in love with the things that I was studying. Something that's very special about Weber State is the opportunities that they give to normal, average people like me. I was given so many opportunities to join leadership groups across campus. I was a director on a community engagement team on campus. I was given opportunities to join the tennis club and play a sport that I really love. I was given opportunities to be involved in research. Currently, I am working with a doctor, Elizabeth Sandquist at Weber State, and we look into how zebrafish are able to regrow their retinas after damage, and we're hoping to maybe extend some of the knowledge of how stem cells can cure blindness. We also work I work at a few health clinics, and I volunteer around. And my goals right now, like you asked, are to go to medical school. I apply this spring, so hopefully things turn out all right. And I hope to specialize in ophthalmology. I really love eyes, and so it's been an amazing opportunity to be at an amazing institution and research on eyes through zebrafish. I just want to say thank you for your time tonight, and that's kind of my story. So,
Thank you, Ben.
any questions? No?
Good luck.
Thank you. It's good to see all of you.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to say how much I appreciate the high school concurrent program, with having many grandchildren who are participating in that, and several graduates of my children from Weber State. So we bleed purple.
Well, thank you. And that is, that's a really important program for us, and one that we're honestly trying to make easier for students to then see their pathway past concurrent enrollment into the university. That's a very intentional goal that we've established as part of our strategic plan for the next 5 years. So we're glad that program is going strong and benefiting all of you. One last fact I'd like to end with. Last year, about this time, Georgetown University released a study on the return on investment that 4,500 colleges and universities, public, private, all types across the country, provide for their graduates. Weber State University is the only school in the state of Utah whose ROI ranks in the top 10% of those 4,500 schools, whether that's 10 years after graduation or 40 years after graduation. So we really hope to maintain that by maintaining our affordability, by providing the types of experiences that Ben talked about, by having students really be engaged and gain the most as part of their education, and then having programs that align well with workforce needs in the community. So I'm happy to respond to any questions, but please know that we're always just a hop, skip, and a jump away, or a phone call if there's anything that we can do to help with the efforts that you have here in West Haven.
Thank you, President.
I don't have any
Appreciate that.
questions, only comments. Obviously, a proud Wildcat with a few degrees. And I definitely credit Weber State with helping me get into my career in aerospace and defense. And we're really excited about what you're doing there with the engineering building at Northrop Grumman. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah, tons of opportunities there.
A whole lot of
Yeah.
opportunity, and
Really-
with
really
all of
exciting
the
stuff.
aerospace and defense jobs moving into Utah, I think that Weber State will play a big role in getting some of those folks jobs in aerospace and defense. So good work on that.
Thank you.
Very proud of that. So
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you. And Ben, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't get into molecular diagnostics. It's a big field out there.
I think you chose a really good path. So, and congratulations to you too. So
That's fantastic.
huge accomplishment for you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next item on here is item number 9, action on Planning Commission meeting recommendations. And that would be for, let's see, our item A would be action on ordinance for 03-2023 patio home zone. And Matt, do we have somebody that's touching base on the patio home? Oh, there we go. I didn't even
Sorry, I was distracted for a minute. I had a chance to work with President Mortenson's son when I worked for First District. His son Cam was my favorite intern. So there's not a staff report with the patio home zone like there usually is with stuff. I think it's been fairly well talked about, the change that we're making. Basically, there's one other major thing besides removing the 0 lot line provision. When Leisure Villas took their fourplex project through the appeal process, one of the arguments that their attorney made was that they were allowed to attempt to do fourplexes because it doesn't say that they couldn't. And while I don't exactly agree with that interpretation, I do think it tightens it up if we include things like any uses not specifically permitted are prohibited. So that's the other addition, and also clarifying that it's single family detached. So hopefully that removes any ambiguity that further proponents of that type of project may think there is. Hopefully it closes those loopholes. So, but yeah, I didn't go through the full process of doing a staff report because I feel like you guys knew that this was going to come in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there any comments on this particular project on here, on this ordinance?
I just have one grammar on the location of structures, number 2, I guess. The last sentence says otherwise non-allowed, should say not allowed.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Under location of structures, number 2. The last sentence says otherwise non-allowed
Oh,
instead of
it should
not
be not.
allowed.
Okay.
Not a deal breaker, just a spell. Yeah.
Anything else?
Send it back to planning commission, is that what you're saying?
Definitely
else
not.
got
Let's roll forward with this. This is good.
Okay, well, at this point in time, I'm open for a motion.
We move to approve ordinance 03-2023, the patio home zone.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Emily, is this a roll call or do we? Okay, we'll do a roll call on this particular one. Any other further discussion on this? Okay, we'll move on to that roll call. Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Call,
Aye.
Councilmember Saunders,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwab,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much for your work on this and getting that corrected. Look forward to that. Next on the agenda on here is item B, and that's action on resolution 042023, moderate income housing.
It looks like I forgot to include the staff report in the stuff that I sent to Emily. So I apologize if there's any confusion on this, but I think it's Matt and I discussed with the city council before the background of every city needing to have a moderate income housing element of their general plan. It was some astronomically high percentage of cities in Utah got notification late last fall that their plans were not compliant. Fortunately for West Haven, our changes were largely technical. It needed to match some of the new verbiage in state code. But also there's a certain element of the moderate income housing plan that requires cities to establish goals, and now we're required to set timelines for how the city is going to implement the different elements of the moderate income housing plan. In looking over those elements, fortunately, they are all things that are already on staff's radar. The Planning Commission last week had a first discussion about parking. The single room occupancy developments. There's nothing in city code that prohibits developers from doing studio apartments. Most of the time they don't. But it may be worth the city considering something, making it explicit that they can. We have 4 goals that are in there. We're only required by the state to have 3. So that doesn't bind the city to seeing that all 4 of them are implemented. So it gives us a little bit of a buffer. So if we get into the details of one of the 4 of them and realize that it's not really going to work, then we're still compliant with state regulations by having progress and actively moving towards the other 3. I've gone over this with the Department of Workforce Services that is responsible for managing and monitoring the moderate income housing programs and plans. They have assured me that as written, it will bring the city into compliance with the state regulations. And so that is, it's before you for adoption.
Can I just ask a process question? So if a developer comes to us and says he wants to build moderate income housing, how does he know how much that has to be for us?
So it's like how many housing units, or are you talking about like the price point?
I'm talking about price point, because in the past we've had a lot of developers coming in with moderate income housing.
It's actually listed in the Stephen Henniger's
Right.
one. There's a price.
But does he tell us that that's going, based on costs, and that's where I get
So
confused.
what happens, and I can walk you through this, like Councilmember Morse said, the specific breakdown on how it's calculated is in the staff report for 21 South that you're
Right.
going to be asked to look at later. So what happens, and I want to be very clear, there's a difference, a huge difference between moderate income housing and subsidized housing.
Right.
They're two very different projects, two very different target groups. So affordable housing or moderate income housing, broadly speaking, is anything that requires less than 30% of the monthly gross income of people who make less than 80% of the area median income. The area median income is generally, it's not always, some places there's sub areas, but generally it's calculated on a county level. And according to the 2021 data given to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, Weber County's AMI is just under $91,000. So 80% of that would be just right around the high $73,000. So of that 72 or 72.7, you take 30% of that, and that's 21,810, and you split that out over 12 months, which is $1,817.50. So for the purposes of housing development, anything that rents for at or below $1,817.50, for purposes of satisfying the moderate income housing requirement, anything that rents below that counts as moderate income housing. Matt and I have both, I went and looked at, got a brochure from Trail Hollow Apartments to look at their price point. Those are the ones that are over in Knudsen Corner. And I looked at other apartments throughout West Haven. The good position that West Haven is in right now, even though $1,800 a month, in my opinion, is astronomical for an apartment, that's what we have to keep it at. And that is the vast majority of apartments and even townhomes that are like under single ownership and rented out. Most of the apartments and townhomes in West Haven qualify to be considered moderate income housing because their price points are at or below that.
So if a developer comes in and we want to make concessions to him on fees, he has to demonstrate to us that it will be a moderate income house. And I just don't want to give concessions and then find out that, oh, by the way, it didn't come out that way.
So I would recommend that if they were going to request waivers of impact fees based on moderate income housing, that would be something that probably would need to be written into an MDA, even though I know those aren't anybody's favorite thing. We're getting a lot better at them, and we're getting a lot more writing agreements into them. So probably what I would suggest is writing something like that into the development contract with them. And then if at any time, and have like an annual monitoring by staff of their price points, and if at any time it exceeds the price point that makes it so the apartments no longer qualify for moderate income status, that at that point they have to pay the city for all the fees that they were credited.
I'm not suggesting that we do that, but so for $1,817 a month, what if that's just a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom house and you have 4 children?
It's a fixed price point. It's not tied to the size of the apartment, to the number of bedrooms or anything like that.
So this moderate income housing might not fit the families who are looking for it, right?
Honestly,
just a general
without,
statement.
it's just going to depend on the project.
Okay.
Sure, I have a question. If we have this in here as a goal, if this is one of our goals, and a developer comes in and says, hey, I want to develop this apartment complex, the rent will be $1,700 a month, are we then obligated to reduce their impact fees? Because we have this
having
as a
it.
goal.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Having it as a goal sets the city on a path to have it as a project that we're going to work on. It doesn't necessarily guarantee an outcome. It doesn't say what the credit has to be. It just says, look, we're going to try and put together an ordinance by this date and this date. We're going to try to come up with some reasonable thing. So if we adopt this and someone comes in now, it doesn't.
Well, even if we adopt this, my concern is that we will have developers come in, and because, I mean, $1,800 a month is astronomical for an apartment, right? And most of them, if they're building apartments in our city, are probably not going to ask that much for rent. It's probably going to be less. So my concern is that once we adopt this, every developer that comes in and builds an apartment complex is going to ask for reduced fees, and I don't want the city to be obligated to reduce those impact fees.
Some of that is going to depend on what the policy looks like, on what the ordinance looks like. I'm not suggesting it's a total waiver of them, because I don't believe that would be appropriate, but there may be, it's just going to depend on what the ordinance looks like at the end of it and how the council sets that policy in place, whether there's a direct connection between how far below the AMI their price point is going to be. You can do, and this is me thinking off the top of my head, but you could do something like that ties the reduction that they get to the difference in what their price point is going to be. You could do a whole number of things.
So we have control over what we decide to do.
Yeah, the city council would have control over what it looks like and what type of waivers and credits you were willing to give. These things, the goals, those aren't things that I made up. There's a list.
Part of the list,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
24
So
items
it's
on there.
part of the great big long list that's in state code. I picked these ones because there are projects in the works related to like re-examining some impact fees and things like that will put the city where they can be compliant. It could be that if say we did we redo the transportation impact fee. This is a big if. You could take and make a smaller fee, like if it was $2,500 for a regular apartment complex, you can say, okay, if it's a moderate income housing one, it's only $2,000. It doesn't have to be a huge reduction. It doesn't have to be a total waiver. It's just saying, find some way to connect the two. But ultimately what that would look like is up to the city council.
And then another question then, if we go forward with these goals and the reduce the impact fees as part of that, and we don't like the ordinance, are we still stuck to this goal, or can we change it to something else?
You change goals.
Okay.
I mean, you can, if it doesn't work like you intended it to, you can repeal an ordinance. You have to have goals that you're working on. So once goals are accomplished, you have to swap them out for new ones so that you've always got ones that you're actively working on.
That makes sense. I don't know that I'm a big fan of this one because I'm just worried about it. Worried that it's obligating the city to, reduce impact fees for, apartment complexes have a huge impact on the city as it is. And so I'm just worried about reducing those fees.
It's a tough one because we're looking at reductions anyway. We're seeing reduced building. We're having a lot of concerns with that as well across the city. as we do reduce that down. So we really don't want to see anything. That's one of the goals. If we've got 3 of them that we're working on, we may not work on this very much at all. But the other ones on here are things that we can move forward with. We just don't want to reduce
Right.
any of the revenues that the city's bringing in if that's what we're relying on. So impact fees are huge.
And I understand the concern, but realize too what that looks like, whether it's a 3% reduction, a 30% reduction, whatever that looks like ultimately is up to the council. But just like with any ordinance that the council passes, once you pass it,
It's passed.
it's passed. But and that's why I put 4 in there when we only have to have 3, because if there's one that we work on and it gets to the council and you're like, you don't have to pass it, but I wanted to put more than 3 in there just to give the council that option, but still make it so that we're compliant with the state.
Yeah, I think the good news is that, as you mentioned right off the bat, we're very compliant. But I don't know that the state has actually give us a percentage number.
Has what?
Give us a percentage number of how much moderate income housing a city needs to have.
No, they haven't.
So-
They just say you have to have it. At this point, they haven't said, okay, if you're 6% of your county's population, you're responsible for 6% of. They haven't gone to that level yet. But I know that with what we have in this city and what I anticipate is going to be coming on board in the next 3 to 5 years, I know that if they do put percentages on it, we'll already be able to meet it.
Well,
So-
and that's, I think that this is very subjective. I think it's been subjective since this
It's time.
Yeah.
law came into play a few
Yeah.
years ago. And it's frustrating that we would even be on any list at all when you look around at all the apartments that we have in this city.
Well, truthfully, the reason that we were on a non-compliance list has nothing for the West Haven, has nothing to do with the apartments, townhomes, or anything.
Were we used as a bad example somewhere, though?
That's a whole different
That was-
conversation that
Okay.
Matt and I are taking care of.
On,
Oh,
on
this
one,
was
We're non-compliant because our moderate income housing plan, the language of it has nothing to do with actual housing for West Haven.
Right.
Which is a huge blessing for this city. Ours is because the state passed an update to the moderate income housing law last year, and I had to reformat our moderate income housing plan and change the goals. It literally for West Haven has nothing to do with what actual housing we have.
Right.
so did 75% of the cities.
Yeah.
So 253 cities in Utah, 75% of them had to change their plan because
Yeah.
it wasn't in compliance. So
And
we're just one of them. Then we're getting it
Yeah.
fixed.
And some cities we're going to end up having to hire consultants and completely redo theirs, and ours took me like an hour to fix.
How do they know that we've done it? I mean, is there like a checklist that West Haven has done it?
So I actually had a Zoom call with the program manager, and I said, okay, before I go down this road and propose these fixes, I want to know exactly what's wrong. This is what I understand from the letter that we got. And I said, so if I go through and change the verbiage to match the law that was passed last year, and if I go through and propose to the Planning Commission and City Council these 4 goals, is West Haven going to be compliant? And do I have to do anything besides send you a copy of the signed resolution? And she said, West Haven will be compliant, and all I need is the signed resolution.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? I know we just had on goal number 2 and in completion time, there was just one technical error on there, just where it talks about, just right before the June 15th deadline, it says projects will before the council, and maybe will come before the council, that's all.
Thank you.
That's it. Anything else on this one?
No, I had already talked to Emily. There's dates wrong on the very back page for your signature. It says
Yep.
2022, but
Oh.
Emily's on it. So
I won't sign it until it's fixed, right?
Aren't we allowed like till the middle of April before we can start saying
think that's
anything
the
about
rule.
writing the wrong year?
Perfect. So if there isn't anything else, I'm ready for motion.
I'll make a motion to go forward with the action on resolution 04-2023 moderate income housing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? Okay, we'll do a roll call on this one to Councilmember Saunders,
Aye.
Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Call,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwab,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Okay, this passes. Thank you for your work on that one. We'll move on to item C in this category, action on ordinance 04-2023 to rezone from A1 to C2 at 3675 South Midland Drive.
I want to explain to the council while Mitch is coming up here. I want to explain to the council why this says C3 and C2. And I think it pretty well does this in the staff report, but I also just wanted to make sure that the public who are present is aware. When the application was originally submitted, they were requesting C3. At the planning commission meeting at the beginning of January, Alec had discussed with the commission that the general plan anticipates the property will be C2. At that time, she recommended that the commission rezone the property, but that it be C2 instead of C3. At that time, Mitch wasn't certain whether or not that would be acceptable to the property owner and to the group that he's working with. So we discussed, rather than having them recommend a rezone to something else, that they recommend denial of the C3 rezone. But after that, he went back to his partners and to the property owner and discussed whether or not they would be amenable to C2. And they said that they actually were comfortable with C2. I talked to the city attorney about whether or not a new application would need to be resubmitted, since they were comfortable with it being C2, like the general plan anticipates. She said that it was possible to do it to C2 without restarting the process, as long as we had written documentation from the applicant or their agents supporting the different zone, which we do, and that's included in the packet. So the staff report says C3, but I prepared the ordinance as if the council was going to go forward with C2. So I just wanted you to understand why there's both C2 and C3 on there. But they have, we have that letter that says they're comfortable with the council moving forward with it as C2, if that's what the council determines to do.
So the total thing is C2. It's not split in half. So
Right.
C3 and C2. Okay.
Right.
Council have questions on this one?
Come on.
I can see some heads looking at me like, is he coming up? I'm like, God, I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm Mitch Morris, for the record. Sorry, Mitch Morris, 3135 South Richmond Street in Salt Lake. As the applicant, thank you, Sherry, for the great explanation there, and your time with the city attorney as well to assure that we could move forward properly there. So. We are applying to rezone to C2, which is in conformance with the general plan, and look forward to bringing some more retail here to the city. But happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you have any idea of the retail that I know that you can't know, but?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. As we do have ideas, and it is definitely retail use along the frontage there. However, I can't say
Right.
the actual use, so I apologize, but hopefully soon we'll be able to move forward with that.
I think that was wise to ask for C2 instead of C3, so smart move.
Yeah, it was a great discussion we had last time, and I think there was some great points brought up of the conforming uses in C2 and C3 that most are allowed whether maybe more on a conditional basis rather than permitted in the C2 as opposed to the C3. But so yeah, we had some good discussion, and even good discussion after the meeting with some of the planning staff as well, planning commission. So we appreciated the discussion, and like Sherry said, I just needed to get the A-OK from somebody higher up than me. Still a little wet behind the ears.
Yeah, I think the only concern I had with it was that I hate to see us go past our land use group. You know, when we have something like this pop up where we have it set up for C3, it goes to C2 through a letter. In the staff report, it says, you know, as the property owner has consented to have the property rezoned. I don't have a letter from the property owner. I have a letter from the applicant. So, and I know that he probably got permission, but we're not sure of that exactly with the information we have. And then secondly, we didn't really get, it didn't go back through the planning commission. It was just approved. Because the state law, it seems like it has some definition that it has to go through that in order to.
Well, the planning commission, this conversation was had with the planning commission. They didn't approve it as C3. They recommended denial to the city council, but it's because there was some back and forth and a little bit of uncertainty in the meeting. And so like I said, that's why I talked to Amy about it. The discussion was had about the possibility of having it C2, because, and they had the conversation that that's what it was called for in the general plan. And so they would have acted different had they
That was the actual recommendation that they were going to make, is to recommend to you guys C2. But the applicant very emphatically said that he would rather have it denied, have them recommend denial of the C3 than have it recommended as a C2. And in fact, at the public hearing, there was a number of people who spoke that it should be C2 and it shouldn't be C3.
Yeah, and I did see that. I just didn't see where really there was a discussion with the planning commission that it should be C3. That was just in through the minutes.
It should be C2.
C2, excuse me, yes.
And that's why I felt comfortable saying I think we could move forward as long as there's something in writing about the applicant asking for that, is because there was pretty extensive public comment regarding that it needed to be C2 and align with the general plan. And the planning commission stated that that was what their recommendation was going to be, is to recommend C2.
So moving to the other point, does it have to be the property owner or the developer can sign that letter?
When the application's originally filed, if it's like some kind of development group, the property owner has to sign a property owner's affidavit saying that they authorize thus
So
and
that's
such
part of the
person
authorization.
to act on their behalf in the rezone.
Okay.
And we have that, right?
Yeah.
Is it, yeah, well, I guess just for future, it might be good to have in the packet, just so we know that it's there. Because it's just important to understand. We just want to try and make sure we're following the process that we're supposed to. But that's the only thing I had. Just wanted to bring that up.
Any other questions for me? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Council, I'm ready for a motion if you'd like.
Move to approve ordinance 04-2023 rezone from A1 to C2. Oh, that font is so small. 2675
36.
South. 3675 South Midland Drive.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council?
No, this is the same update, the date, but Emily has that too.
Yeah, I got that too, but she'll take care of that. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, we'll do a roll call on this one on here. Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Swap,
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Call,
Aye.
and Councilmember Saunders.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to item D on here, action on ordinance 05-2023 for master development agreement for 21 South mixed-use project at 2000 South and 1350 West for Ponderosa Capital. And I hope I got the address right because that font is small. Welcome.
evening.
You just state your name and your address, please.
Yes, sir. Jake Earl. This is Nate Messerly. So,
Can you
good
state
evening.
your address in there too, please?
Oh, yes. So we office at 1357 South, 2000 West, Far West, Utah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name's, like I said, Jake Earl. This is Nate Messerly. We represent the developer on this project, Ponderosa Capital Partners. We're really grateful and appreciate the opportunity to be before you all this evening to talk about this project. So just like many of you, myself, Nate, and the members of our group have grown up in this community, and we've driven by the Stephen Henniger's building many times, and we've often wondered what could be done to repurpose this site and elevate this area that really sits at the doorstep of our community. And over the last several months, we've worked really closely with members of staff, and we've come up with a plan that we feel accomplishes this goal of instantly elevating and improving this area, but will also serve as a catalyst to spur in future growth and improvements to this area. And we've done so while staying in line, it falls in line with the current code and zoning for this area. So tonight we'd love to answer any questions that the council may have about this project.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions on this?
I have a question, and this not for you, but probably for Sherry or our attorney. I don't know why this has an MDA. If it meets the mixed use zone, why is there an MDA? Because I'm not really seeing any.
The mixed use zone states that specific project setbacks and things like that will be outlined in an MDA.
Thank you.
And I want to add one thing, not to that, but just an amendment to the staff report, something that came in after the staff report was issued. The traffic analysis that they've done that the staff report references is complete. I've had an opportunity to review it. Councilmember Call asked me for a copy of it earlier because she had questions on the traffic impacts. And I'm happy to send it to the rest of the council after if you'd like. The results in the summary of the traffic analysis for this project is that it actually doesn't recommend any improvements that need to be done to that road to serve this project at this density. They have analysis of existing conditions and the level of service, and analysis of the first day, they call it opening day, the first day when traffic from the entire developed site would be impacting the roads. And they have tables for both of those. And the level of service actually doesn't change with the addition of the 280 plus apartments. Councilmember Call actually also asked me about fire. And I think it's clear, I would hope it's clear from the staff report and also the language of the MDA that approval of an MDA is not approval of the full design of the project. They still have to go through the site plan. They still have to meet all of the city's engineering site development standards related to circulation, fire, all of that. The MDA is just basically saying, these are the setbacks, these are the project, these are the number of units, this is the building height, these are the amenities. And even it's section 4.9 in the MDA that says they still have to go through this process. And they've been made very aware of that, that there are still other processes that they have to go through. The size of this project, this is a site plan that will come to the city council. If it does get to that point, they're required to provide preliminary landscaping. They're required to provide building architectural elevations and things like that so that staff can review those and ensure that those are compliant with the standards we have in the design review ordinance. Oh, the one other question a council member asked me about before the meeting, just to make you all aware of, Councilmember Saunders emailed Matt and I this afternoon and asked about the proximity to the river, if there's any potential flooding. Their FEMA issues flood hazard maps, and I've looked at the flood hazard mapping for this area. There's a very small portion of the north corner of this property that's designated Zone X by FEMA. What that means is there's a 0.2% chance of flooding in a year or once every 500 years. So based on the concept,
This
though,
might be that once in 500 years.
what?
This might be that once in 500 years.
I know, right?
That much snow, calm down.
I mean, my thing is, if the river gets all the way over to this property, we probably have bigger problems. But any time that there's any portion of our project that's impacted by FEMA flood hazard designations, there are certain mitigation strategies that they have to do in the engineering of the site. You know, based on the way their concept is laid out, I don't think it's any part of the property where there will be buildings. But even still, that's something that our engineering staff works through with them to make sure that any necessary mitigation happens before we sign off on the engineering drawings. But it's not anything that covers a large swath of the property or makes it undevelopable or anything like that.
Saunders, good question.
Well, and I appreciate Sherry getting right back to me. That was very quick and very thorough. I didn't know where to find the map, and she had it. I did have a question on in the staff report. You talked about in item D,
Sorry, can you talk a little
it's
bit
under
louder?
additional requirements in the ordinance where it talks about building aesthetics. Is there anything in the MDA? Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was anything regarding that in the MDA.
Because we have a design review ordinance that specifies like architectural design materials, ratios, percentages. Because we have another ordinance that governs what multifamily buildings have to look like, those aesthetics aren't specifically written into the MDA. It's rather, it's included in there that they have to comply with whatever the section number is. So, because that still obligates them to follow it without getting into that level of detail in the MDA. Because one of the things that that we learned through, I would say through the process with Leisure Villas, is that MDAs really are supposed to be a little bit more conceptual than what they have been for the past several years with the city. And then they still have to go through the site plan process, or they have to go through the subdivision platting. But we've been told through the appeal process that the two need to be separate, so that they can just be two separate actions that can be looked at individually. So that's one of the reasons, because this has to go through the site plan process, that's one of the reasons why some of those more detailed things aren't written into an MDA.
Thank you.
I have a question Steve, about the 1718 rent, whatever it was, 1817. So I would assume that is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, right? So there will be apartments here that are not moderate income housing. Is that for the bigger apartments?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've dived in a little bit to market research and rents, and that's something that we'll continue to do as we move forward. But rents will be determined later, and it's probably similar to Altair across the highway.
So Sherry, for this to be considered moderate income, is there a number of apartments that need to be in this?
At this stage, that information was in there more just as to help you understand what qualifies as a moderate income housing project. It's not specifically tied to this project, and I apologize if that wasn't clear.
No, it's fine. I just,
If we get to the point where the state does require reporting on rents and things like that, at that point, we would need to go and look. But at this point, it's early enough in the project that we don't have price points on it.
okay, just a question.
Yeah.
We love moderate income housing.
Are there any other questions we can answer tonight?
Anything else for him?
I have one for Sherry.
He waited for you to sit down, I noticed.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the right page. I underlined it here. Why are we writing this NDA for 5+ years, 5.5 years?
Why did we what?
Why is it 5.5 years long before it expires?
Um,
Is that set by state code? Is there a benefit
No.
to that? I mean, I'm sure this would be done in less than 2 years, but
well, that's can you tell me what page you're on just so I can make sure that
just
I'm
found it. Sorry, page 6. Term
Page
of
6?
agreement. This MDA will be good until June 30, 2028.
That doesn't give them, that's not saying they have that long to start the project. They're just saying like the project, as long as the project is progressing, it's valid up until that date. I mean,
I understand. I just don't know why we're pushing it out that far. What's the advantage to the city? What's the advantage to the developer?
I mean, typically anytime you make a contract, I didn't write the 5.5. Amy, did you put that in there?
Hold on just a second. Let me see if it's possible that their attorney made the suggestion, but hold on, let me look at the red
I mean,
line.
the reality is a project of this size is not going to be completely done in 2 years.
Sure it is. I do those for a living, so it happens.
Well, I would disagree with you based on 15 years of planning experience. I've never seen a project with 300 apartments go from concept to being fully built in 2 years. So we just have different experiences. So, I mean, but every contract, every agreement that the city has a period of time that it's good for. Some, depending on the scope of the project, some it's 5 years. It's highly unusual to see a development project only lasts 2 years. I've never seen one that's that short, so.
Gotcha. I'm just wondering why 5 years. There's probably a great answer for it.
I can't answer that. It's not clear in the red line version as to why.
Is there a standard for it somewhere?
What I've seen, they're typically 5 to 7.
I mean, it is a sizable project.
Yes, go ahead.
Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah,
It's okay.
go ahead.
It's pretty standard in development agreements. It's a phased development. It doesn't mean that we're going to start and be done within 5 years. It takes that long because it's like you said, it usually doesn't. But it just gives us flexibility to be able to phase the development, and meet the market's requirements for this type of building. So
For the
Explanation?
Well, and they have to tear down a building too.
This
pretty
is true.
sizable
Yeah, I
building.
didn't consider that one. You have a big building to take down.
yeah, that shouldn't take too long though.
can we come and watch?
Just for clarification on this, since this came up, does this language more or less replace the requirement to have action going within a year time for MDAs? I believe that's in the code. If action hasn't been, development hasn't taken care of within a year, it can be dissolved. Does this allow them flexibility to take up to 5 years to take that building down and take action?
Well, I think it does allow them longer time to be able to do that versus, just the 1 year. But again, they have to take that building down, and them being in the process of taking the building down means that there's progress going on in the project.
Yeah, that's why we had the year set up, is that there just had to be progress in that year and the extension could move forward, right? So, Yeah, it's just it's a long time, but I understand why. Is there any concerns with the council on having that time frame?
I don't have one.
Okay, just want to check.
I had a question on term of agreement. When it terminates automatically at build out, do we have, is there a definition for that, what build out is? Like, is it just
Sorry, for which?
the absolute completed, they've built everything that they submitted, or is there a percentage of that meets
Sorry,
build
you're
out?
going to have to back up and start
the
over. I
terms
didn't
of
hear the
agreement,
first
the
part of
same
your
for the date.
question.
Same
There's
one as the
actually
date.
the definition of
Same.
build out and on page 2.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Amy. One other question for the developer. Looked like you plan on meeting the mixed use with, a pool and some other items. Pickleball court or courts. Is there one planned or multiple? Just curious.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear the first part.
On the mixed use element, you guys are adding in like a pool and clubhouse and that,
Right.
correct? And then it said in the agreement, pickleball courts or court. Do you plan on doing multiple courts or just
Yeah,
one?
that's a great question. Our current plan is 2 courts. That's what we hope to.
That's going to be pretty exciting, having a dog run up and down the center of those and then have a pickleball court. And that's one thing that's kind of interesting is pickleball is so loud. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but it's going, I mean, that's a beautiful plan. It's just, that's really noisy. We have, in our city, we have pickleball courts and we have neighbors that are half a mile away that complain about the noise of pickleball. So that's going to be close up against these tall buildings. But yeah, it's going to be nice. So they've got their open space. That's what they're including, their open space areas and everything. Is there any other questions? Okay. I think just, again, correction on the date on this one, on here. It's on 22 as well. Anything else? Ready for a motion, if there's a motion on this?
I move that we approve ordinance 05/2023 Master Development Agreement 21 South Mixed Use Project at 2000 South 1350 West Ponderosa Capital.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? Okay, we'll do a roll call on this one. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Swap,
Aye.
Councilmember Morse,
Aye.
Councilmember Call,
Aye.
and Councilmember Saunders.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate this project.
One last note, I don't know if this matters or not, but I had messed up on our office address. It's 1357 North, 2000 West, not South. I don't know if that's important, but.
We're gonna have to
Fine.
re-vote on that again.
Start over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to item 10 on here, action on resolution 05/2023 for cable and facilities easement between West Haven City and Utah Infrastructure Agency.
So on this one, I'll speak to it if it's all right, Mayor. This
Yes.
is the we're just bringing back the location of the fiber hut for the City Hall location. Taking the council's direction, we relocated that farther east. It'll actually be just east of the storage unit that we have over here by the dumpsters and that. We do not have the survey yet. They're getting that involved, but we're asking with this resolution that we can approve it based on the attached drawing. That gets us out of line of sight for from the street and everything, and gets it set up that way. So what we're asking for is just for approval on this motion based on this drawing. As the survey comes in and matches that, then we will sign the contract and proceed, just so we don't have to wait for additional approval once that survey comes in. So we're hoping to get that any day now. So, but I was wondering if the council had any questions on the location.
I love the location. I think it's great.
Location.
Yeah, good. think it's fantastic. I have a question though, Matt, on this. So let's just say, for example, with this location on here, if for any reason the property was sold for some reason, how does that work where we got a 30-year bond with them to work on these?
So this agreement, as with the other 3 locations, creates an easement that allows that. So if the city were to sell these properties, any of the 4 properties, those easements would be attached in the sale, and a new owner would have to do it. If we terminated the agreement with Utopia, then that hut would have to be relocated. It's always something we can negotiate. It'd probably be at the city's price if we decided to have them move one, though.
Is there anywhere in the language that just talks about any of that at all? Like if the property's surplus or anything, what happens? Like if we were to sell a park or something like that?
Well,
not that we're going to.
Can I buy a park?
The price is right.
Has
But
to go
if it
through public
happened-
hearings, especially getting rid of a park's a pretty big deal. It would just, the language of the easement is that the easement's attached to the property, and so it'd have to be a negotiated
So it's just rebuilt
separation.
during that process. Okay. Just want to make sure. That was just one thing because
Is the easement length 30 years or is it permanent?
It is, it coincides with the agreement with Utopia, so it would be a 30-year or until they abandon the hut. So if they decided for some reason this hut's antiquated and we want to relocate it in a better position, that easement would terminate as they terminated the hut. So it's not a standing easement.
And that's in the main agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
So
that matches languages from the other 3 contracts that we approved.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions on this? Okay, I'm open for a motion on this.
Move to adopt resolution 05-2023, cable and facilities easement between West Haven City and Utah Infrastructure Agency.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Okay, we'll do a roll call on this one as well. We'll do Councilmember, Councilmember Morse.
Aye.
Councilmember Call.
Aye.
Councilmember Saunders.
Aye.
Councilmember Schwab.
Aye.
And Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. It's taken care of. I'll be excited to get that done, and I do appreciate the council reconsidering where that was at. I think that was a good move to push that back so it doesn't interfere with the building. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on here, our item 11. Before we get into that, I just wanted to thank a lot of people here because this was a big project, by the way, working through our advice and consent for our events committee and to review that. We have a lot of people that have been involved with the events, and over the years, I think the volunteer program that we had really gave a lot of, we had great events throughout the years here in West Haven. We just had to make sure, I think it was in the best interest of the programs and the committees to make sure that we had some organization to it, and we were financially responsible and fiscally responsible when doing these type of events. So we're moving forward with a advice and consent to do appointments for these committees overall. So I hope that, thanks for your input on this, and we'll just go ahead with number 11 on here. Advice and consent for 4 events committee member appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill 4 one-year term positions. These, let's see, man, this is some small writing. I'll have to move this a little closer. Let's see, to fill the terms will be from January 1st of 2023 through December 31st of 2023. And the names on that would be for Sharon Bolos, Scott Epperson, James Jensen, Nina Morris as the city council liaison. So on that, we appreciate these folks and want to just put a motion towards accepting these folks.
I'll make a motion to give advice and consent for 4 events committee members to fill a 1-year term from January 1 of 2023 to December 31st of 2023 for Nina Morse, James Jensen, Sharon Bolos, and Scott Epperson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries on that, and we appreciate their time and efforts. We'll move on to 12 for advice and consent of 3 events committee members for appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill the 3 2-year term positions. The new terms will be from January 1st of 2023 to December 31st of 2024. They will be Colleen Hunter, Alan Keys, and Mary Jo Stringham. So any further discussion on that, or we can move to a motion?
I can't write fast enough to say
Right.
the names.
I'll make a motion to give advice and consent for 3 event committee members to fill 3 2-year terms from January 1 of 2023 to December 31st of 2024 for Colleen Hunter, Alan Keys, and Mary Jo Stringham.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a vote on that one for this one to get through with it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move forward with that one. Thank you. Item number 13 on here. This is for advice and consent of 6 events committee member appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill the 3-year term position. The new terms will be from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2025. And those names would be, and I believe they're here, if you guys would just wave your hands so everybody could see you. That would be for John Price and Julie Price. They will be the chair of the events committee that was appointed. And then Vadon Kelly, Clarence Kelly, Jeff Reed, and Kira Price. So those are the ones that we would have for this ongoing committee for this. So I'm open for discussion, or we can have a motion.
I think I got these all. So I move that we give advice and consent for 3-year committee members for, gosh, it is really tiny writing, Emily, to fill a 3-year term position from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st of 2025. John and Julie Price, Vadon and Clarence Kelly, Jeff Reed, and is that all of them?
And
Kira.
Kira
Oh,
Price.
and Kira Price.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're all good to go.
Those are great
Didn't take us
appointments.
very long.
Good job. We appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to number 14, or item 14 on here, for advice and consent of 5 Arts Council members' appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill 2-year terms, positions. The terms will be from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2024. Those names are Alan Griffin as chair, and Wendy Parker, Charisse Olson, and Michelle Monterith. Did I say that right?
Montierth.
What? Say it again.
Montierth.
Montiers? Okay, thank you. And Carrie Call as the city council liaison. So I'm ready for a motion on that.
Mayor, just one item. We may want to make Carrie Call's appointment to coincide with her term.
Okay, what do we have on here?
It's for 2 years.
That's true.
I just
true.
noticed that.
Okay.
Not that I don't want her to move on, but
We'll just,
just
we'll just list it in the next one.
yeah,
That's
do
fine.
that.
So,
I can
Yeah,
do that.
we'll do that. Okay, so we'll make that adjustment on there for that appointment. And I'll change that on our listing too.
So I'll make a motion to give advice and consent for the Arts Council member appointments to fill 2-year terms from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2024 for Alan Griffin, Wendy Parker, Charisse Olison, Michelle Montierth.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move forward with that one. Thank you. All right, next one on here is item 15, and that's advice and consent for 5 Arts Council member appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill 5 1-year term positions. but we'll change that over and move Carrie down on that one. The terms will be from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2023. The names on that would be for Stephen Taylor, Stephen Taylor, Terry Taylor, Ann DeLucia, Jennifer Kellerstrass, and Mark Randall, and Carrie Call as the City Council liaison. Ready for a motion?
I missed one, but I'll make a motion. I move that we approve the advice and consent for 5 Arts Council members to a 1-year appointment for Stephen Taylor, Terry Taylor, Ann DeLucia, Mark Randall, and Carrie. Was that the last one? Or is there
Jennifer
another one?
Kellerstrass.
I'm sorry?
And Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer
Kellerstrass.
Kellerstrass and Carrie.
Call.
Call.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on. Next one. We'll just keep voting along here. Item 16, advice and consent for 4 of the Beautification Committee member appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fulfill 4 2-year term positions. The new terms will be from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2024. Those names submitted will be Randy Hightower, who will be the chair, Kevin Beckworth, Jeff Reed, and Ryan Saunders as the City Council liaison.
Okay, I'll make a motion for advice and consent of 4 Beautification Committee member appointments submitted by Mayor Vanderwood to fill 4 2-year term positions. The new term will be from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. And as chair, Randy Hightower, Kevin Beckworth, committee member, Jeff Reed, and myself as the council liaison.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes through. Thank you. All right, the last one on here, but not least, this is our advice and consent of 2 Beautification Committee members appointments submitted by myself, Mayor Vanderwood, to fill 2 1-year term positions. The new terms will be from January 1 of 2023 through December 31st of 2023. The names submitted will be for Leslie Saunders and Sharon Bolos.
I should probably talk to my wife about this, but
Yeah, does she know? Are we voting for her without her knowledge?
Move to approve and give advice and consent of 2 Beautification Committee member appointments submitted by Mayor Vanderwood to fill 2 1-year term positions. The new terms will be from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 for Leslie Saunders and Sharon Bolos.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much for going through this, and I think we have a fantastic group. We've had a fantastic group in the past, and we just want to make sure that we're moving forward. We really appreciate the Prices being here, and they're going to sacrifice, I'm sure, like all these people are with their time and efforts and their talents. So we're pretty excited about that. So thank you, everybody, for getting involved with that and getting this taken care of.
Jeff, I just wanted to know, are there any other committees you want to volunteer for while you're here? Because, I mean, we can redo a couple of those
There's limits.
or create a new one for you.
afraid of sitting too close to
It will rub off on
Just
you.
name it the Jeff Reed Committee.
It's contagious.
All right, well, we got 1 minute left, and we'll move to item 18 on here, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.